Live from WRAL News Headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
This is the River Arts District here in Asheville, and as floodwaters have started to recede, you can see all the damage that's left behind, all the debris that is piled up against this particular bridge. Coming up, a closer look at this damage and the recovery efforts that are only just beginning.
And checking out radar, the remnants of Helene, much weaker, finally moving offshore and out into the Atlantic, but it will bring us a chance of a storm later today. I'll show you.
And thousands of dock workers at ports along the East and Gulf Coast are on strike. We're going to show you some images this morning and talk about how this could drive up your grocery bill and possibly slow down the rebuilding process in western North Carolina. A lot of people right now, they need resources, they need food, water, but the rebuilding material, that could be affected by that strike. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But first, thank you so much for joining us here on WRAL News on Fox 50. I'm Chris Lovingood.
And I'm Michelle McConaughey. We're going to start with weather here. You just heard Elizabeth mention we could see some showers later on today. We're dry for now. Really cloudy out there behind us at Dix Park. But Elizabeth shows us where the rain is right now.
Most of it is up here associated with this low pressure system up into Virginia, but rotating around counterclockwise, we're going to see some moisture lingering as this low moves away from us, and that could bring us a few isolated showers. Anything that happens this morning is most likely to be in our northeastern counties. We're dry on the radar right now, but by the mid to late afternoon, as we add a little daytime heating here, we could see a few isolated cells pop up. Yesterday, we had 2 tornado warnings. I would not expect to see any of that today. We didn't have any damage reported, but I wouldn't expect that same threat of severe storms. Blue sky up above. We're just dealing with this lingering moisture here on the ground. 70 is our temperature, 67 the dew point, so it definitely feels very humid, very tropical out. Checking visibility. It's 2 miles in Roxborough, but things have been looking pretty good from the Triangle area northward. It's been down here in the Sandhills, Southern Pines, Rayford, even Irwin. At a 1/4 mile visibility is where we've seen the bulk of the fog that you may deal with. A chance of a shower up in our northeastern counties, some fog in our southern counties is the main impacts to the commute this morning. We take a look at temperatures as we get through the afternoon, and we're looking at the potential for up to 78 this afternoon with a chance of some scattered showers and storms. We've also been talking about the potential for some development here of another tropical system down here in the Gulf. The new models that have come in show just weak development and mainly staying down there in the Gulf and not headed toward North Carolina. But we'll take a closer look at the tropics as a whole coming up. Ken?
All right, at 8:02, Elizabeth, we continue to monitor the situation that's happening to the east. The crash that we've been monitoring for the last hour has cleared, but you can still see the lingering delay of on I-87 there in the Zebulon area. And this is what we're talking about. You see the crash is moving into the median. The traffic is moving away from us. It's a 3 to 5 minute delay. Interestingly enough, I showed you this camera about 10 minutes ago. We couldn't see it because quickly fog rolled in. I was talking to Elizabeth about it, and she says fog can roll in at a moment's notice and roll right back out. Now we're seeing this camera again. Also around this community, we're seeing a couple of instances I want to bring your attention to. This one in particular, a serious crash on Capitol Boulevard in the northbound lane, the Main Street heading into Wake Forest. We're not seeing any problems in the northbound lanes, but if we widen out the view, you can see the problems that's caused on those southbound lanes coming in from Wake Forest and US 1. Lewisburg is the same way in terms of delay this morning. Here's what you're looking at coming in from Wake Forest. You're looking at a 12-minute delay. Those I-87 southbound lanes, you're just looking at a 4-minute delay. It's actually getting better if you're coming in from all points south from Lee County, Moore County. You're just looking at a 1-minute delay coming into the capital city this morning.
WRAL is actively bringing you new videos and stories from western North Carolina. This right here is video in Fairview in Buncombe County. The extent of the destruction, it's just catastrophic. We're talking 49 people confirmed dead in North Carolina because of Helene, and at least 40 are dead in Buncombe County alone. In fact, in the last 30 minutes, we have learned I-40 east of that county has reopened after being closed for days. President Joe Biden is set to personally see this damage tomorrow, and he is pledging federal support. What could have a serious effect on the recovery effort is a strike that started at midnight. Workers on coastal ports across the country could cause major delays in delivering aid and rebuilding materials. And we will get you more on that strike in just a second. But first, we really want to go out to WRAL's Brett Neese. He is live in Asheville right now. Brett, you're in the River Arts District. I've been watching your social media journey out there, and what you have been seeing, just show everybody what you're seeing right now. It is just shocking.
Chris, it's really just awful to take in. It's almost overwhelming at some points just to see the amount of destruction especially here in the River Arts District. Look at the piles of debris that are behind me. This is one of the main bridges to get into the River Arts District here on Riverside Drive. It's incredible to see all of that debris piled up on top of the bridge, on the side of the bridge. And then look at this massive hole that opened up right here at the base of the bridge. Those yellow tubes there beneath it, the piping, that's infrastructure that we don't normally see and really shouldn't see. It's incredible to see some of the other debris that's just scattered across some of the roadways here. And then if you come across the roadway over here to the other side, there's even more damage to the roadway right there. The concrete just gone. I mean, it's impressive the amount of water, the amount of damage that water can do, especially here in this one particular area, and more infrastructure there below the surface that we should not see. This is just gives you a glimpse into what people are dealing with here. The need's still so great. Of course, they have started to set up some distribution centers. We talked to one volunteer at one of those about why it was so important to come out and help.
I think it's very important. Obviously my husband works for Park and Rec. I'm a teacher. We care about our community a lot, and to be able to help people who are in a worse spot is so important, because we don't have water, but we're doing okay. We've got power and our house is safe. So, it's kind of like it's our job to kind of step up and help our neighbors.
This is video, of course, of other destruction in the area, an RV park that was really just decimated by the flooding, and RVs just thrown everywhere. But back out here live, take a look at this hole that's in the side of this building. That's more damage that we're seeing. But one thing that I did want to note, that it almost it shows what that woman just said, how she felt that she had to help. Look over my right shoulder, some of the graffiti love on the side of the building right there. This community really coming together to love on itself in these hard times. Live in Asheville, Brett Neese, WRAL News.
More than 1,200 federal workers are now on the ground in western North Carolina, responding to one of the worst disasters in state history. WRAL's Laura Levine joins us live from National Guard headquarters in Raleigh. And Laura, these teams are working hard to deliver supplies, get the power back on, and also find the people who are still missing.
Truly a hefty load. Good morning, Michelle. Yes, the National Guard says they have 800 people on duty for this event. Their primary focus is search and rescue. Meanwhile, later this morning, we are expected to get an update from FEMA on their efforts in some of the hardest hit areas. As you're taking a look at this aerial footage now, you can see the devastation across western North Carolina. Now, FEMA says that they have delivered about 100 million liters of water and more than 600,000 meals to North Carolinians. The federal agency has also established feeding sites. However, many people we know still do not have access to these locations. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell says the agency has 1,200 federal personnel supporting the response efforts.
We are going to be here as long as it takes to finish this response and continue through the recovery. This is a historic storm with catastrophic impacts across many communities. But I want the people of North Carolina to know that we have the resources here in North Carolina to help with this response, to begin the recovery. We will continue to send additional resources in.
And later this morning, we are expected to learn more on when some of those resources will get to some of those people that were completely blocked off from access, communication as well. That briefing begins at 11 a.m. Laura Levine, WRAL News. We're live in Raleigh.
We're following a developing story from overnight. At midnight, more than 45,000 port workers on the East and Gulf Coast went on strike. Let's go to WRAL's Kelsey Coffey. She joins us live in Cary. And Kelsey, this could have a wide-ranging effect on the economy, yes, but also potentially on the rebuilding efforts in western North Carolina.
Chris, it sure could. That strike could cost the U.S. economy more than $4 billion per day. And you could see the impacts during your next grocery store trip. Tens of thousands of port workers are walking off the job this morning. They're demanding higher pay and more protections against automation. This could impact recovery efforts in western North Carolina. There may not be an immediate effect, but we could see impacts down the line when it's time to transport construction materials and rebuild the area.
This is going to cause container rates to increase, which means it'll cost potentially 20 to 50% more every time something is shipped.
As for everyone else, this could impact the prices you pay for everything from cars to groceries.
We will see some selected prices in retail stores go up, particularly if you're talking about food, something that people are very conscious about because they buy it every day.
President Biden has the power to end this strike, but his administration says he won't do that out of respect for workers' rights to strike. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News, live in Cary.
Take a look at the stage set up for tonight's vice presidential debate. Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will face off in the only scheduled vice presidential debate before the November election. Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan will moderate the debate. And you can watch Senator Vance and Governor Walz square off tonight live on WRAL with full coverage starting at 8 p.m. Just ahead, an App State student is sharing how strangers helped rescue her and her roommates. They were trapped in a car caught in floodwaters. She recounts the moments leading up to the rescue and what was going through her head.
Plus, new video shows a Russian jet sweeping in just feet away from a United States aircraft. We'll tell you the moments that U.S. defense officials are calling unsafe and unprofessional.
And we're looking at cloudy skies and a little fog this morning. Finally, a low pressure system will pull away from us today to bring us some drier conditions. But the humidity may hang around for a while. I'll show you when it finally moves out.
Welcome back. This is dedication right here. Southern Pines is where you were looking live. There are a handful of golfers out there, despite the not so clear conditions. You're watching WRAL News, available on Hulu and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device. Nothing stops golf, right? You have to get the game in, and they're doing exactly that. Meteorologist Elizabeth Garner has a look around town. Pretty cloudy out there.
It is, and you're down there in the Sandhills, Southern Pines, Pinehurst, where we've been seeing fog all morning, but yep, it's not stopping them. Good for them. I love that. Fayetteville looking cloudy, Apex, Chapel Hill, and Raleigh all looking cloudy. We did have a lot of low cloud cover here over North Hills just about an hour or so ago. That started to lift a little bit, so we may start to see some improving conditions in other places here shortly, but it is likely to stay cloudy for a bit. As we get into the afternoon, we may end up with a little bit of sunshine, but some scattered thunderstorms as well. Not as widespread as what we saw yesterday. We don't have that same severe threat, but some isolated storms into the evening, and then that should be the end of it. This low pressure system was parked over the weekend in Tennessee and Kentucky. That was the remnants of Helene, but it is very weak at this point, and we're not looking at any rain currently in our viewing area. If we see any of it, it's likely to be in the northeast. We're going to see that low continuing to pull away from us and take some moisture along with it. So from here on out, it's really just today is really the best chance of rain that we'll see for the next 7 days. And we're talking about maybe a few hundredths to a tenth of an inch of rain today. It just doesn't look like we would see a whole lot. Now, yesterday was a whole different story. We had some pockets where we had 1 to 2 inches of rain here in blue up and down the I-95 corridor. And then the northeastern corner of Johnston County, northern Wayne County, had over 3 inches of rain. So that puts us at the third wettest September on record. We've seen 13 inches. And number 1 and number 2, interesting. Take a look at this. Back in 1999, that was the heaviest at 18.5 inches. That was when Floyd came through. And then number 2 at 15.5 inches was 1996 with Fran. And so here we go with Debbie and Helene. We ended up with 13 inches, third heaviest on record for RDU. Tropical outlook, couple things out there. This next system could get a name, 90% chance, but it's way out in the Atlantic, just coming off the coast of Africa. And then we have Kurt, which is not likely to develop. It's likely to develop, but it's not going to hit land. And then this one, 40% chance here, just an area that we want to watch closely. But as we get through the next few days, we'll watch it. The latest runs of the computer model barely have this developing into a tropical depression, and it doesn't look like it brings any rain to North Carolina, which we certainly are happy to see. Kurt stays out to sea, but could become a major hurricane at Category 3. Today will be on the cloudy side, and so will Wednesday, but we should see a bit more sunshine over the next few days. Finally, we'll start to see our humidity dropping off. I'll show you when it will feel a bit more comfortable. Ken?
Elizabeth, happening now in the WO Traffic Center. I want to continue to monitor this situation to our east this morning. A crash cleared about 45 minutes an hour ago, but we're still seeing the lingering delays. They're coming in from Zebulon on I-87, and this is a camera that we're seeing. You see that crash has moved out into the median, and that's the delay that you're seeing this morning. You're looking at a 3 to 5 minute delay. A little while ago, we couldn't see any of this traffic because of some fog that rolled in, but it's beginning to dissipate just a little bit, so no problems there. Elsewhere around the Triangle surrounding communities, we're seeing the usual congestion building in the northern and southern loop of the Beltline. You're looking at a 5 to 7 minute delay in either direction. This is other situation we're following right now, a highway in the eastbound lanes of I-70 near the I-40 interchange. We're not seeing any problems in that particular area, but just watch for some police activity just in case you're navigating Highway 70 in those neck of the woods. This serious crash we've been monitoring here on Capitol Boulevard near Main Street heading into Wake Forest. Again, we're not seeing any problems in that particular area, but if you widen out the view, you can see, US 1 remains a trouble spot, Capitol Boulevard coming in this morning. In terms of delay, here's what you're looking at. You're looking at a 10-minute delay coming in from Wake Forest this morning. But of course, if you're getting ready to head out, you can stay up to date on whatever your morning commute will be. Pop us on the radio, 101.5 HD3.
Your time is 8:19 this morning. The Israeli military says it is conducting a limited ground operation in Lebanon against Hezbollah targets there. The military says it is performing targeted raids in villages close to the border they claim pose immediate threats to communities in northern Israel. Israeli leadership says there will be no long-term occupation. U.S. leaders confirmed Israel notified them ahead of the operation. Days ago, in fact, Israeli airstrikes killed the leader of Hezbollah and a number of the group's commanders in Beirut.
Scary moments in Rocky Mount when another tornado warning was issued for the same area that was hit by an EF3 on Friday. Thankfully, there was no major damage yesterday. The area is already cleaning up 14 damaged buildings. 3 were destroyed. Rocky Mount police will remain on patrol around the businesses for the rest of the week.
One person was killed in a crash involving a box truck in Harnett County. This happened on NC Highway 210. The road was shut down for hours last night while troopers investigated. Highway Patrol says an SUV and the box truck collided head on. The driver of the SUV died at the scene while the box truck driver was rushed to the hospital.
Today, people in Nevada and across the country are remembering those killed in the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Today marks 7 years since the Las Vegas massacre that initially killed 58 people and injured about 500. 2 more people have died in the past few years. Yesterday, Las Vegas officials vowed to complete a permanent memorial for victims and survivors by the 10th anniversary. It'll be installed at the former concert venue where the attack happened and feature 58 candlelight beams. It'll also feature 22,000 lights representing the number of people who attended the concert that night.
4 Appalachian State University students were trapped in their cars as floodwaters surrounded them. They could not get out. A tree fell and crashed right onto the vehicle, causing the students to sink into the mud. Sophomore Avery Panner said the water levels were just beneath the windows, and they knew they were in trouble if they did not escape. After forcing the door open, they all escaped, but Panner was swept away in the rushing floodwaters. But then help arrived.
I firmly believe that something very terrible could have happened to me if it wasn't for these random people coming to save us. And it was just completely unreal. It was life-changing. It's something I won't forget.
There. Panner says everyone was grabbing her legs to keep her in place, and they managed to hang on, and each student got to safety.
Thank goodness, that is so scary. Well, today, postal workers from here in Raleigh and all over the U.S. will rally. The American Postal Workers Union is holding a day of action to demand improved staffing and customer service. They also want the first-class service given to election-related mail to apply to all mail. Workers will gather at the Capitol Station Post Office on New Bern Avenue at 11 o'clock this morning for this day of action.
The United States released video showing a Russian fighter jet swooping close to a U.S. jet off the coast of Alaska. Look at this video. You can see the aircraft come from behind the camera and zoom past the U.S. aircraft. See how close that came? This happened on September 23rd in international airspace. It also happened to be Alaska's air defense identification zone. U.S. defense leaders say Russia's conduct was, quote, unsafe and unprofessional. NORAD says Russian activity in this area is normal and not seen as a threat.
Today, Fayetteville Technical Community College will celebrate the final phase on construction on its new fire and emergency training complex. The school will hold a groundbreaking at 11 this morning for the final phase of construction on the Burn Village portion of the complex. It follows the technical rescue training that opened in September of 2022 and the Swiftwater Rescue Training Facility that opened last October. The 30-acre complex is the largest of its kind in the region. Well, today, thousands of dock workers at ports along the East Coast, including Wilmington, went on strike.
We're going to talk about how this could affect your grocery bill and slow down the rebuilding efforts in Western North Carolina.
I'm Brett Neese here in Asheville this morning, where we continue to see damage, especially here in the River Arch District, where so much debris has piled up against this bridge. Coming up, a closer look at this damage and the efforts to get people in this area the supplies they need.
As you get into your car, tune to WRAL News Plus on your radio. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM. In Durham, 96.5 FM. And everywhere on 101.5 HD3.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Time now is 8:26. I'm Michelle McConaughey. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner tracking some storms up to our north. We could see some rain here later today.
This low pressure system is finally going to pull offshore today, but it is lingering some moisture around, and we could have the potential for an isolated shower or thunderstorm. It shouldn't be as widespread as yesterday. Just a 20% chance this morning, mainly in our northeastern counties, and then a 30% chance this afternoon, really across, excuse me, any part of the viewing area. Some cloud cover here at the airport. We should begin to see those clouds breaking up a little bit later on this afternoon. We've been watching visibility down here in the Sandhills. We've had a good bit of fog this morning, but in another couple of hours that should start to lift. 78 for the high. If you're walking the dog this evening, just be on the lookout for an isolated storm. Ken?
Happening now in the WO Traffic Center, we're seeing the usual congestion building in the usual spots along the Beltline, I-540 this morning. Taking a look at the delay times heading into the capital city, here's what you're looking at this morning. You're looking at a 12-minute delay coming in from Wake Forest this morning, just a 2-minute delay on those 87 southbound lanes. Over in the Bull City, really the only trouble spot that we're seeing in the Bull City really is Highway 98. If that's part of your morning commute, you're looking at a 6-minute delay this morning.
Thanks, Ken. This morning, 49 people are confirmed dead in North Carolina after the impact of Helene. Asheville's mayor told CNN about 600 people are still missing. President Biden is expected to get a tour of the damage tomorrow. He's pledging federal support and necessary aid to the state. And at midnight, thousands of port workers along the East Coast walked off the job. The strike could delay important aid needed in Western North Carolina. Specifically, construction materials needed to rebuild these communities often come into these ports. Cars and grocery prices are expected to go up as well. We'll have more news, weather, and traffic over on Fox 50.
Shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your number one source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
Now on Fox 50, devastation in Asheville in the wake of Helene. We are taking a look at the images of the remains of an RV park where floodwaters decimated the area.
We have a tiny shower that's showing up here in eastern Wake County. We'll talk about the potential for more showers and thunderstorms later on today.
And right at midnight, thousands of dock workers walk off the job in a strike that's expected to ripple through the U.S. economy. What this means for the price of items that you buy every day and the rebuilding process in Western North Carolina. They cannot afford any more hiccups in this process, and this is certainly one of them. We'll talk about it coming up. Thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle McConaughey.
I'm Chris Levinger. We'll talk also about why they're striking in just a second. But first, we do want to get your weather forecast for you. We've got Elizabeth Gardner who's tracking that right now. Pretty calm for the time right now, Elizabeth.
It is. Later this afternoon, we may see a better chance for showers. A tiny little shower there in the eastern part of Wake County right now. We take a look at futurecast. There's a low that'll be moving offshore today. And so most of the rain that we see today should be in our northeastern counties or even out of our viewing area off to the northeast. At lunchtime, a couple of sprinkles, light showers in the northeast. As we get through the afternoon, there's still going to be a lot of lingering moisture, so some daytime heating could fire up just a few isolated showers. We shouldn't have the same severe threat that we ended up with yesterday, where we had a couple of tornado warnings. No reported damage, though, fortunately. Folks, up and down Fayetteville Street here, cloudy skies. It's feeling warm and sticky, but no rain really to deal with, at least here in downtown Raleigh. 70 is our temperature, and our dew point is sitting at 6. 67. That's our Jimmy V camera. There's been some fog, not much of that in our northern counties, but down in the Sandhills, Southern Pines is missing here, but it's been down to around a quarter of a mile, a little over that in Rayford, about a half a mile in Fayetteville, and below a quarter of a mile in Smithfield. So those are the areas where you're most likely to see some patchy fog. Temperatures in the upper 70s this afternoon, again with a small chance of a thunderstorm. We're watching the tropics down here in the Caribbean. There's a small chance, a 40% chance that development could happen here, but the latest model runs keep it here in the Gulf of Mexico as a tropical disturbance and don't develop into a tropical storm or hurricane. Ken?
All right, Elizabeth, all new into the WRAL Traffic Center. We just got reports of first responders working a crash in northern Durham this morning. This just happened just a little while ago on US 501 near Carver Street. If you're listening to us on the radio at 101.5 HD3 and you're heading up north on 501, I would use North Roxborough Street as an alternate route because you're looking at a 10 to 15 minute delay right now there on 501. Back here in Wake County, there's a Capitol Boulevard crash in the northbound lane near Main Street heading into Wake Forest. We're not seeing any development of any delays in that area, but we widen out the view. We see the usual delays we're seeing in the southbound lanes coming in from Wake Forest this morning. Things have definitely sort of cleared up on 401 as well, but these are the delay times you're looking at. You're looking at a 14-minute delay coming in from Wake Forest this morning, so if you're coming into the capital city, you might want to leave the house a little sooner than usual just to be on the safe side this morning. Elsewhere around the triangle, we're seeing the usual congestion building on the belt line. You're looking at a 5 to 7 minute delay depending on which direction you go on the belt line. But hey, if you're heading out, listen to us on the radio, 101.5 HD3. We'll keep you posted.
This morning, hundreds of people in western North Carolina are still unaccounted for. Floodwaters are receding, giving us a better look at just how catastrophic this damage is. Today, rescue crews will try to reach some communities that have been entirely cut off. Damaged roads and power, cell, and internet outages are making it extremely difficult to reach them. 49 people are confirmed dead so far in North Carolina. At least 40 of those deaths are in Buncombe County. In the past hour, we've learned that I-40 East out of the county has reopened after being closed for days. Also, the port strike that got underway at midnight could have major impacts on recovery efforts in the mountains. We'll have more on that in just a few minutes. But first, we want to get out to WRAL's Brett Neese live from Asheville this morning. Brett, you're in the River Arts District there, and the destruction behind you. I mean, it's just hard to wrap your mind around.
Michelle, it really is. And where I'm standing right now would be several feet underwater. I mean, it's hard to really grasp what that would look like when this happened. And now this is what's left behind. And I wanted to walk through some of the debris that we are seeing here. This is a propane tank. There's all kinds of different pieces of wood and everything. This right here, it's a refrigerator. Someone's refrigerator floating all the way down here to this bridge that enters the River Arts District. That's a random tape measure that's out here. There's a computer monitor. There's all kinds of drywall. I mean, this right here was some sort of massive wall at some building that was swept away here into this bridge that enters Riverside Drive here in the Rivers Arts District. It's truly just heartbreaking to look at everything that I'm seeing right here. There's other pieces of construction material right here. And then whenever you see these trees that are still technically planted in the ground, they are just bent over because that's how hard the water and how fast the water was moving and how hard it was rushing through here to be able to knock these trees over, bend them like they are. It is catastrophic damage everywhere you look in this part of the state, and it is so truly heartbreaking. Fortunately, though, so many distribution centers are back up and running, and people are getting the supplies that they need slowly but surely. Michelle, it is really hard to wrap your mind around what we are seeing after Helene moved through this part of the state.
Yeah, I mean, you're there. We're here in studio looking at the images, and you are physically there. What's the feeling that you get there, standing there?
It's heartbreaking. I mean, it really is that people's lives are all smashed up against that bridge right there. It's truly heartbreaking. And when you talk to residents, I will say the one thing that is amazing is resilience. That's the word that comes to mind when I talk to any of these people that live in and around this area. Resilience, and they are starting to come together. It is going to take weeks, months, years to rebuild this, Michelle.
It absolutely is. All right, Brett Neese, thank you so much for your reporting.
Just horrible to see that. More than 1,200 aid workers, though, are in Western North Carolina, and their mission is to deliver supplies and find the people who are missing. As WRAL's Laura Levine explains, more than 90 search and rescue teams are in the mountains.
We are here at the National Guard Joint Headquarters with the Emergency Operations Center. The National Guard says that they have 800 people on duty for this event with their primary focus on search and rescue. Meanwhile, later this morning, we are expected an update from FEMA on their recovery efforts in the hardest hit communities. Taking a look at this aerial footage, you can see some of the damage, just a glimpse of the devastation across Western North Carolina. FEMA has delivered about 1 million liters of water and more than 600,000 meals to North Carolinians. The federal agency has also established feeding sites. However, we know many people still do not have access to these locations. FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell says President Biden has asked FEMA to stay here as long as it takes.
The biggest thing that I can say right now is, again, at the direction of the president, he has asked me to make sure that we have every federal resource available to support the people of North Carolina, and thinking about those resources in perhaps a way that we wouldn't traditionally use them.
And the agency has 1,200 federal personnel here ready to respond. We will get that update in a briefing from FEMA taking place at 11 a.m. Laura Levine, WRAL News in Raleigh.
And breaking news, more than 45,000 port workers on the East Coast and Gulf Coast are now on strike. They hit the picket line at midnight. WRAL's Kelsey Coffey tells us this could cause higher prices at the grocery stores and slow down the rebuilding process. From Helene.
U.S. economy more than $4 billion per day. And you could experience the impacts of this during your next grocery store trip. Tens of thousands of port workers are walking off the job this morning. They're demanding higher pay and more protections against automation. This could impact recovery efforts in Western North Carolina. There may not be an immediate effect, but we could see impacts down the line when it's time to transport construction materials and rebuild the area.
This is going to cause container rates to increase, which means it'll cost potentially 20 to 50% more every time something is shipped.
As for everyone else, this could impact the prices you pay for everything from cars to groceries.
We could see some significant price increases, but we're not going to see everything go up. But I think it will grab people's attention.
President Biden has the power to end this strike, but his administration says he won't be doing that out of respect for workers' rights. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News in Cary.
And Jeff Hogan in the WRAL Live Center right now. I want to get you some important information. Parents will want to know if you have a kid at Wake Lawn Elementary School in Zebulon. School is letting out early because the air conditioning is broken there. They've been trying to work on it and fix it, just couldn't get it done. This is the urgent early dismissal message that went out earlier today. They need some new parts to fix it. They worked on it yesterday. They'll work on it some more today. This is part of the letter that went out to parents this morning. School buses will provide transportation home for students who do ride the bus. Parents can also pick up their students using normal carpool procedures. Staff is going to stay on campus there at Wake Lawn Elementary with those students until they're all picked up. All after-school activities are canceled.
Seen quite a lot of in the last month. Thanks, Jeff. Well, we're hearing from two witnesses who tried to save a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old from an apartment fire in Raleigh. Tragically, both of those children have died. The fire happened early Sunday morning on Cantwell Court off North Raleigh Boulevard. A neighbor who did not want to be identified says that she woke up to the children's mother frantically knocking on her door.
The dead of night, we just hear banging, 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 banging and screaming. We wake up, we come outside, she comes around the corner, and the woman is just holding her children. They're lifeless.
That is just so devastating. Investigators have not released a possible cause of death, possible cause of the fire. The mother did not require any medical attention. And a Lee County teacher was at her vacation home in Western North Carolina when floodwaters carried it away. Now her family desperately trying to find her. How far away her husband was found.
And Michelle, Helene's impact is reaching the November election. This morning, what election leaders in our state are doing to ensure people can vote even if they lost their IDs during the disaster.
And you're taking a live look at North Hills this morning. It's foggy and cloudy morning, making way for a cloudy day. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner tells us when the fall weather makes its appearance.
Pretty quiet outside as we are waking up this morning, and we're getting our weather forecast in just a bit, even foggy in some places. We've got meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner that's tracking the start to your day. Again, pretty quiet.
It's really quiet. We take a live look at Dual Doppler 5000 radar. You can see some rain up into Virginia, but I'm going to have to zoom in here on Wake County before you can really see this little shower. Tiny little thing headed towards Zebulon, so don't be surprised if you see that. Now, we'll likely see more of it as we get into the afternoon. We have a low pressure system that's up here in the northeast, and that's where most of the showers are right now. You can almost see the kind of counterclockwise rotation that goes on. 5 o'clock, a couple of isolated cells could pop up across our area in any part of the region, but mostly we're going to see it up into the northeast as that low continues to move on out. And we should begin to dry out a little bit more by tomorrow. For today, our best chance of any flooding is going to be north and east of the Triangle area, particularly parts of Halifax County, Northampton County, up around the northeast, Edgecombe County possibly as well. We take a live look at downtown Raleigh. It's nice and dry here, a little bit breezy as we look down Fayetteville Street from our Jimmy V camera. And it's cloudy. Our temperature 70, our dew point 67, so it's a warm and muggy start out there. We've also had some fog, some low cloud cover. Still seeing some low clouds in South Hill and Roxborough at 2 to 3 mile visibility. But elsewhere, things have looked fine in our northern counties, our southern counties, Fayetteville and Rayford, Southern Pines still at a 1/4 mile visibility. So some of the Sand Hills dealing with some fog this morning. Yesterday, we had some thunderstorm cells that popped up in places. And then after it moved out, Michelle Barnes caught this beautiful rainbow in her backyard, and her dogs were out there really enjoying it. Go to WRAL.com, search Weather Watchers, send us a few photos. We'd love to see what's happening where you are. Raleigh, 78 this afternoon, 76 in Durham, and 82 in Fayetteville. Those temperatures are close to normal. It is going to stay humid for the next couple of days. We see that dip a little bit by Friday and Saturday, but it doesn't get down here to comfy or refreshing, which is what we expect to see during the fall. But we will see some of that moisture moving on out. Right now, we're looking at a good bit of it around the region, but by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday, we should start to see that moving southward, and our humidity should drop off a bit. We don't see a big drop in our temperature, though. Over the weekend, highs will be in the low 80s, but notice these overnight lows dropping into the 50s. That's a sign that we'll be feeling a little bit more comfortable, especially in the mornings. Coming up in a little bit, we'll talk more about what's happening in the tropics.
All right, we'll see you in just a bit. Thank you, Elizabeth. We are seeing some of the extensive damage in other parts of North Carolina's mountains, not just Asheville, right? For example, this is what it looks like in Burnsville in Yancey County. That's just north of Black Mountain, if you're familiar. Roads are washed away, many trees are down, and debris is everywhere.
And this dramatic video shows the moments that a Wake County man saved a woman's life in Helene's flooding. Eddie Hannell jumped into the water, into the floodwaters, to save Leslie Worth as her Ashe County home was swept away. Hannell lives in Holly Springs, but was in Ashe County for his son's wedding. What was supposed to be a weekend of celebration turned into danger in the flooding. Hannell saw Worth in the home floating down the river. He grabbed a life vest and rope and went in after her.
I grew up swimming on a swim team. I was a lifeguard. I'm in okay shape, and I just couldn't watch her die. I felt like I needed to do that.
Leslie and her husband Phil posed with him after they got out of the water. They were bonus guests at the wedding rehearsal dinner after losing all of their personal belongings.
Goodness gracious, so glad he was there to help her out. The disaster is having an effect on the presidential race as well. The Trump campaign has launched a GoFundMe page for people suffering from the effects of Helene. One of his senior advisors shared a link to the page on the X social media platform last night. The former president visited Georgia yesterday to tour storm damage there. And during his time, he accused President Biden of not speaking to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, even after being told Kemp did in fact speak to Biden. Last night, Biden responded to that accusation, saying that Trump is lying.
Yesterday, Vice President Kamala Harris met with FEMA officials in Washington, D.C. She was briefed on the impact of Helene and the federal response to support rescue and recovery efforts.
Meanwhile, North Carolina election officials are working to ensure everyone affected by Helene can vote in the upcoming election. More than a dozen county elections offices in the mountains will remain closed for the immediate future, and that could affect efforts to send and receive mail-in ballots. The emergency declaration means voters in affected counties will be able to claim an exemption, specifically from the state's new voter ID rules this year. The board also launched a new website with more details on how the damage impacts voting.
Doctors are warning about health dangers that are hidden in the murky floodwaters left behind by Helene. WRAL has learned of at least one Appalachian State student who returned to Raleigh and tested positive for the bacterial skin infection cellulitis. The student's doctor said it was likely from the contaminated water. Infectious disease expert Dr. David Weber with UNC Health says your skin is naturally a good barrier against infection, but it only takes a small nick or a scrape to open the door to a host of problems.
People need to be very careful of injuries while they're in water and trying to go from place to place or fix their houses. So there are a number of bacteria, they're skin bacteria like group A strep that can cause severe skin infection.
And drinking contaminated water also poses major health risks. Boiling water will help protect against bacteria, but it won't remove things like chemicals that may have spilled during the heavy rainfall.
I want to show you some video this morning, surveillance video from Helene's impact on Florida, and it shows the dangers of saltwater flooding electric cars. Look at your screen. A Florida family shared this video of their Tesla bursting into flames, and that burned their home down. 6 to 8 inches of storm surge got into the garage and damaged the car, which led to the fire. If you keep watching the video, you'll see the flames grow more intense. Local officials are telling people whose electric vehicles were exposed to salt water to move them at least 50 feet from their homes.
Goodness, that is terrible. Well, the Wolfpack football team is working to give back and help people impacted by Helene in Western North Carolina. Team captain Davin Van is leading the charge by collecting supplies. The trucks are provided by his family's moving company, and they'll deliver the supplies to the Durham Rescue Mission for distribution. You can donate today and tomorrow, anytime from noon to 8 p.m. at Close King Indoor Practice Facility. And if you're wondering how you can help, you can also do this. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now. We've compiled a list of information and resources on our website. All you have to do is go to WRAL.com and search help. Well, the family of a Lee County teacher is desperately hoping she'll be found safe in Western North Carolina. This is Kim Ashby, a teacher at Sandley Middle School, and this is a photo of her home in Avery County floating down the river in Helene's floodwaters. Ashby's family says that she and her husband Rod traveled to the vacation property Thursday to remove items before Helene arrived. The next day, they were inside the house when the Elk River ripped it off its foundation and carried it away.
And they hit an embankment or a turn, and the house just kind of collapsed in on them. I guess they were able to still grab each other and were floating, and at some point they got hit by a tree and got separated in the water.
My goodness. Rod was found the next day 2 miles away from where the house once stood. He's recovering and refusing to leave the area until his wife is found.
Certainly hope they do find her. Your time is 8:52. The Detroit Lions were on the prowl last night against the Seattle Seahawks. The Lions scored 6 touchdowns on their way to a 42-29 win. It's the first loss of the season for Seattle. Both teams are now 3-1. Meanwhile, the Tennessee Titans have their first win of the season, but they lost their starting quarterback. Will Levis went down with a shoulder injury in the first quarter in Miami. Backup quarterback Mason Rudolph came in and led them to victory. The Titans beat the Dolphins 31-12.
A new way to rideshare is coming to Wake Forest today. The town is launching a pilot program called Go Wake Forest. It'll work like Uber or Lyft. You download the app and you can ride anywhere in Wake Forest. It'll operate Monday through Saturday. The current Wake Forest Loop bus service will be suspended during this pilot program.
Your time this morning is 8:53. Before we go to break, we do want to bring you the winning lottery numbers. And of course, we're going to get you another check on your weather and your traffic report that is coming up in just a couple minutes. Stay with us here on WRAL.